Today we're going to talk about political risks, right? Two very interesting and high octane cases. So what we'll do is we'll have the groups present and then we'll talk about them a little bit to sort of understand what happened, what could be done, what should be done, all of that. All right, so group 2, can I have you guys over to present?
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Shravya. I'll be presenting the Chad-Cameroon Petroleum Development and Pipeline Project. So the basic description was they found oil reserves in Doba Basin and they had to transport it all the way from Doba Basin to Kribi Marinal Terminal through Cameroon. So they divided the project into two parts. The first one is field system. It basically is extracting the oil from the Doba Basin. It had construction of 300 oil wells. And the second part is export system. It's basically transporting the oil from Doba to Kribi. It had construction of 1070, almost 1000 kilometers pipeline. So they opted project financing structure for export system and corporate financing structure for field system. So this is the financing structure. They created 3 special vehicles, Upstream Consortium, Chad Pipeline Company and Cameroon Pipeline Company. So this enabled the government, this enabled even for the governments to get revenue from the project. So incentives for the government, basically the Chad and Cameroon, in these countries they are really backward countries. So this is a great revenue opportunity. So the problem is how they are going to use this revenue once they get the revenue. Even when it is very backward country, so even for the sponsors they had some risk, like political risk. They can't trust the government enough to continue the project. I mean, start the project even for the starting of project. So opposition, obviously for the oil pipeline system means they had high environmental risk. Pipeline can damage the groundwater, terminal, high oil spill conditions. Exxon had a reputation, like in 1989 it already had one oil spill problem. So after that the people were not trusting enough for the trusting government to give the revenue for the betterment of the people, like poor people. And also they couldn't trust even the World Bank, because there have been many African countries in which oil development has been done, but even in those countries, they couldn't do much for the people, like poor people. So for equity from the government, whichever equity from the government is coming, it was all in the form of loan from World Bank. So for the project to continue, World Bank had to give some money to these countries. So it had some level of influence. So it tried to restructure the project in order to address all the risks that were voiced out. So they proposed some changes, like first they conducted meetings with many NGOs and villages, and then the plan of the pipeline was modified because some to facilitate, like to protect more habitats and to get less resettlement of the people. And then the sponsors also increased the compensation plans. The important thing was the revenue management plan, which they proposed, like it is the main thing for World Bank to give the loans. So in the revenue management plan, it gave a detailed plan of how to use the revenue that was generated from the project. It was expected, like 1.8 billion is expected as revenue, and from in that 16% was income tax. They said ki government can use the income tax as they according to their wish, and but the remainder they prepared a detailed plan, like 10% they have to give for poverty, future generations, 85% for basic infrastructure, health, education, rural water, and 15% for the programs in Doba, like whatever the programs have that are being constructed in Doba region, main Doba region. And they created a oversight committee. The plan was to create an oversight committee of 9 members, 7 from the government and 2 from the trade unions. And also to ensure that this has to happen, they made RMP as a contractual obligation for the loans, and they also linked the future lending with RMP implementation. But even after the implementation, even after this much planning and all for 5 years, they couldn't get it. Like in 2006, in 2006 the plan was again, the contract was again restructured. Even after that, the country didn't implement the necessary steps for the poverty reduction and all. So in 2008, by 2008, I think Chad government had repaid the whole loan amount. So yeah, they couldn't.
Group 2 has done a fair job of presenting the key facts of the case, right, which I don't know if I can still run through this, but essentially I think we're all familiar with the project. It's a pipeline to be constructed going all the way through Cameroon. Why do you have to go all the way through Cameroon? What's the purpose of constructing the pipeline? Right, you've got oil, right? So what's all you have to do is construct an oil field. What's the purpose of the pipeline? So you've got to get it to a port somewhere, so you can export it. You can export it to a refinery, refine it, all of that. So it has to go through Chad and Cameroon. And what do we know about Chad and Cameroon? Right, these are not necessarily the most stable countries in the world at that moment, neither economically, politically, socially. Chad is, both Chad and Cameroon have some amount of civil war raging. They've got quasi-dictatorships. So it's not they're not very politically stable areas, right? But this is the project, and we'll get to a few. In fact, this part here, right at the bottom, on the that you can see, I'm going to just sort of expand on that a little bit later and look at the financing and all of that. Okay, want to go through this later. Okay, so Chad-Cameroon pipelines. The key issue is, okay, I've got this pipeline. We know that the governments of Chad and Cameroon are involved. We have Exxon Mobil, which is going to be the private entity that is essentially going to develop this project. We all know that Exxon is an oil major. They develop, refine, export, sell petroleum, all of that. But there is the issue of funding, because none of these people have the money to put on this project by themselves. And we all know that there is a mix of debt and equity. So while Exxon will put in a certain amount of equity into the project, there is some debt that needs to be borrowed, right? And so one of the candidates to lend to this project is the World Bank. Why is the World Bank a good candidate to lend to this project? So they have good reputation, etc. So essentially there are two or three aspects to this. One, you want the World Bank because they have money. Two, you want the World Bank because they have money at relatively cheap rates, because they're looking more at development rather than commercial investment. Three, you want the World Bank because they're also a large international player that may have some ability to arm twist or coerce or convince the Chad and Cameroonian governments to play ball, because they are not lending only to this project, right? Most of these kinds of multilateral organizations are probably lending to the government in other spheres as well, right? And so you always have that threat of, if you don't really do a good job on this project, I will withdraw funding from elsewhere, right? And so there is some kind of pressure that you might want to bring to bear. So the World Bank is clearly a logical person to look at, right, for funding this kind of a project. Okay, so from the World Bank's perspective, this is the question, right? Should the project be funded? Right, it's very simple, straightforward technical project, right? You have a field system, and then you have a pipeline that takes it to the coast, right? It's not an engineering marvel. It's reasonably challenging, right? We understand that there are advantages, there are pros, and the pros are you are actually going to create some wealth in Chad and Cameroon, right? Because on what else does that economy run? It isn't as if they have a thriving agricultural sector or a marketing sector or a services sector where they have IT and banking. I mean, essentially these are relatively poor countries. So for those countries to develop, there should be some source of wealth, right? And in this case, the source of wealth is hidden under the ground in the form of petrol. Right? So if I am able to bring that out of the ground, if I am able to sell it, then that money can go back into those countries and people can start developing better roads, hospitals, etc. So clearly the pros of this project are not only will the world get oil, but that's the secondary benefit. Chad and Cameroon can actually use the money from this project because it's their oil to develop, right? Great. The cons, as the group brought out, was you're going to make you're going to create more wealth in that country, but are you sure that that wealth will be used for development, right? What happens because you have power hungry dictators, you have civil war, etc. Will the funds be misused, right? And where do you think they could be, what do you think they could be misused for, right? Essentially for buying weapons to continue to propagate these wars, right? So you don't want certainly the party in power, which is not necessarily a democratically elected party, to now become so rich that they can actually buy much larger guns, weapons, etc., wipe out the opposition and continue dictatorial rule. That is probably the outcome that you don't want. You want them to take this money and invest it into infrastructure, education, health, services, all of that. And one of the problems of actually using this to fund weapons, right, is that one consequence of having those weapons is somebody might blow up the pipeline itself. Right, in some ways you are funding the project in order to blast the project, sort of kind of logic, right? So that's the con. Okay, so the pros are, this is a way Chad can develop, and I can't see many other ways in which Chad is going to develop, right? And we all want countries to develop. I think we're all sort of humanitarian, equitable. The risk is, will it develop, or will it sort of degenerate into sort of a bigger, more heavy layer of civil war? Okay, so this is a question on which it is difficult to have. Political risk is too high, which means the risk of expropriating those funds for military purposes is high. Therefore, there should be more stringent clauses. Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit about what you would like? What could be a more stringent clause that you might want to put in? Okay, so the money that is coming in, right? So I'm repeating this, by the way, also because it's being recorded, and the point that Harsh is making is that therefore the safeguard is that the money that comes in, there must be some mechanism by which it is used for the development of the country, right? Now, for those of you who voted in favor of the project, does such a safeguard exist, right? So again, Shravya presented, there was something called a revenue management plan that came in, which seems to do exactly what Harsh is talking about, right? It says, okay, you know, you get your revenue, here's a management plan, and it can be, and I think Shravya, you even had some data, no, 85% in this, etc. You had some data that's in the case. Harsh or anyone from the let us not invest in this project group, have they not answered your question? There is no regulatory body, Parthik says, that makes sure that those things are happening, right? Do the rest of you agree? Well, there is the World Bank, but is there a regulatory mechanism? Is there an oversight mechanism or not? There was a committee formed, right? Tell us a little bit, Jayakishan, about that committee. So essentially there was a committee formed to oversee this project, 9-member committee, right? What was the problem with that committee? Those who don't want the project to go forward. So majority was from the government, and therefore, 7 out of 9 were from the government, right? And therefore, what is the sanctity that they will actually act in the best interest of the overall nation? They will act in the best interest of the government. The best interest of the government at that time is possibly investing in weaponry to stabilize their situation, okay? And therefore, yes, there is a revenue management plan. It does have a governance mechanism, right? But the question is that governance mechanism the right kind of governance mechanism? Okay, is it a biased governance mechanism? Okay, any other objections for the group that said, what about the quality of the revenue management plan itself? Right? What do you guys think of the quality of the revenue management plan? So the plan mentions that here are certain categories of expenditure, but it doesn't go a step further and try to allocate the revenue among those categories. And therefore, what could conceivably happen is that I would say, okay, I'll figure out, I won't invest in weapons, but you know what? I'm going to invest all of that money into roads through which my tanks can go through the countryside, right? And not invest a single paisa on water, on health, on security, and that's perfectly permissible under the plan, right? Because I am allowed to invest in basic infrastructure. That's what I'm doing, right? There are no caps, there are no limits. It doesn't say 20% needs to go here, 40% needs to go there. It essentially says, what is it, 85%, right? It goes into this larger, in fact, if I have that in the background. So it has a certain percentage of money that, it does not have a certain percentage, it will go to each sector. So I can take all of it and lump it into roads, right? And that may not necessarily lead to the development of the country either, right? So essentially the case against the project, right, is that it's not politically stable, as Harsh pointed out, right? There have been attempts to ensure, and therefore there need to be more safeguards to make sure that the money that is generated from the project is put to the best use of the country. They have created a revenue management plan, they have created an oversight structure, but neither is the revenue management plan specific enough, nor is the oversight structure unbiased enough. Okay, but now since most of you said you would like the project to go through, what's your response? What do you have to say? Okay, so what Yamini says is, look, even if they use some amount of money for weaponry, there will be some money that's being used for infrastructure development, social development, etc. So at least something will happen, right? The weaponry is in some ways you could argue that buying weapons is a given, right? Worst case, if you don't do this project, they'll go to Sudan and get the money from there, right? And there's a reference to that in the article as well. So you might as well give them some revenue and hope that at least some of it goes into basic development. You're going to be better off than you would otherwise be. Fine, fair argument. What else? Right. So essentially it comes out to saying Jaykishan's point is essentially, look, how else is this country going to develop? Right? There is no other sort of mechanism. Like we said, they don't have any other kinds of natural resources. They don't have large agricultural produce. They don't have human resources that can make them the center of, say, IT or whatever, and deliver services to the world. Where are they going to develop? Right? This is the only way that they will develop. And if you continue to always look at the dark side of things and not invest in this country, it will never develop. Right? And therefore there is a necessity to develop, and you've got some pretty big players out there. Right? You've got the World Bank. Right? So if somebody needs to keep these guys in line, who better than the World Bank? Right? Exxon at the end of the day is a global leader in sort of this industry, right? So it's you can depend on them to do a high quality project, make sure that the maximum amount of oil is extracted, your costs are low, your profitability is high. So you've put together the best players possible. Okay, so let's take a chance, right? Because otherwise there's no point sort of continuing to live like you're living in Chad. There's a chance to make things better, take that chance, and let's try to see if we can govern the project going forward, right? So these are the two essential arguments. Okay, so quick analysis on funding the project, because I think this is important to understand. There's a field system, right, which is actually funded through what we call corporate finance. What does that mean? What do we mean when we say the field system is funded through corporate finance? So essentially, who's borrowing the money? Right, Exxon itself is borrowing the money. Okay, so corporate finances, Exxon is taking a loan and putting it into this project. Okay, and they have their own outlay of, according to the case, 608 million. The export system, right, is actually being is funded through the project finance route. Right, a special purpose vehicle is created. This is what we've talked about. Right, special purpose vehicle is created. The special purpose vehicle borrows. Okay. Here ExxonMobil's outlay is 321. So totally they have a $929 million outlay on the project. Okay. Why not do both through corporate finance? Or why not do both through project finance? Why do one through corporate finance? Why do one through project finance? What are the advantages of corporate versus project finance? Yeah. Okay, so the field system is localized, they can probably control it, and therefore the export system is going to go through Chad and Cameroon. So I absolutely agree. So therefore the export system is project financed, so the risk is shared. But why not do the same thing for the field system? So in case of project finance, the profit cannot be diverted to the parent company, right? And therefore you do. So essentially we've got to understand what the advantages of corporate and project finance are, right? So clearly one of the advantages in a corporate finance system, all the profits go back to the parent entity quite directly. Even in project finance, it will go back indirectly, right? Because ultimately it is you are putting equity into this joint venture. So the joint venture can declare dividends that come back to you, right? So the money will come out. So the thing is, if you look at the data, if they had done pure corporate finance, right, which is this, if done pure corporate finance, the advantage of pure corporate finance is speed, right? What kind of a credit rating does ExxonMobil have? AAA. They have a AAA credit rating, which means they are highly credit worthy, right? What does that mean? These rating agencies that give you essentially a rating which tells you how likely are you to repay money that you borrow, right? AAA is one of the highest ratings, right? So essentially says, look, these guys have wonderful balance sheets, etc. They have a wonderful past record. You can almost safely lend them money. Right? So people will be willing to lend these guys money relatively quickly at short interest rates, because I'm at lower interest rates, because I'm not really worried about the risk. Even if this project goes bad, I know, number one, these guys will take all the necessary technical considerations to prevent that, and secondly, even if something happens, they've got deep enough pockets to be able to repay my loan, right? So I can do speed, right? But if I do corporate finance, right, their outlay is actually quite high. Okay. The advantage with project finance is much slower, okay, but what you're doing is you're spreading risk. You're spreading risk, right? You're only a special purpose vehicle now. You're not taking the entire risk on the project. Your money is no longer as much at stake, right? If the project goes bad, people don't come back to you, right? They can only come back to the special purpose vehicle, right? And you need the risk to be taken by other people. As ExxonMobil, I'm an expert in oil exploration, extraction, maybe refining, all of that. I am not an expert in managing social development and political development and civil wars and all of that. So I need other people, right? So I can go to the World Bank and say, let's do a joint venture, right? But the World Bank will say, what do you mean? I don't do joint ventures, right? I'm a lending institute. Okay, so how do you get other people on board? You get them on board by creating a special purpose vehicle, funding through project finance, because now the World Bank understands that if the project goes bad, they're not going to get anything back. They can't go back to ExxonMobil's balance sheet. So they better get their hands dirty and ensure that the project goes well, right? So it's a risk spreading strategy, right? So essentially what you want to do is you want to go for speed and you want to go for risk spreading, right? And so you have this kind of a strategy, right? So the way you finance it, right, also needs to be thought through, right? Because these guys realize there's a political risk, they financed it in a certain manner, okay? So financing, so what are the advantages? Risk sharing, risk mitigation of political risks, the advantages of corporate finance, less transaction costs, which means it's faster, less paperwork, etc., because they have a AAA rating, right? So these guys are trying to blend both, okay? All right, so what's the World Bank's role in this project? What are the various things you want the World Bank to do if you're an ExxonMobil? Okay, what's the simplest thing you want the World Bank to do first? First, give you money, okay, then what else? Right, and also support with political stability, right? You want them to interface with the government, negotiate with them, perhaps even threaten them, ensure that they stay in line, so that you're not particularly you're not particularly concerned as ExxonMobil about where that revenue gets used, right? Remember, ExxonMobil doesn't concern itself with whether that money is used for military purposes or for non-military purposes. Your worry, if it's used for military purposes, is will my pipeline get blown up, right? So you want to make sure that the project sort of goes in a goes through and you get your return expectations and all of that. But the World Bank itself says, look, I want to really appraise the project, and the World Bank wants to ensure economic development of Chad. So Exxon wants World Bank to safeguard the project. World Bank is only interested because it feels that this is a chance for Chad and Cameroon to grow, right? So they are very keen about revenue management, capacity building, all of that, right? And one of the reasons they're also financing it, because they also realize if they come on board, other investors might come on board, right? So because you say, okay, the World Bank's involved, they're a strong player in this area, they can negotiate directly with governments. Now I have a little bit more security in putting my money along with this, right? Because remember, the World Bank's not the only lender, right? There are a number of other lenders that they're looking at. If the World Bank leads a round of investment, others will follow, right? And again, you diversify your risk even more. Okay, so this is sort of what is expected out of the World Bank, mitigating political risks, which is what you guys talked about. Okay, now let's look at the way the project is structured, right? Was the project structured in a fair manner? Were Chad, Cameroon, or Exxon benefiting unfairly as a result of the project? What's your opinion? Do you think that they were benefiting unfairly, or do you think it was fair? Okay, how do you tell whether it's fair or not? How do you even answer my question? What will you look at? Right, so you look at the risks and the benefits they are getting. So for instance, you look at what happens if there's an upside, what happens if you have a downside, right? So if there is more oil than required, what happens? If there's less oil than than expected, what happens? Okay, all right. So downside risk, when you look at downside risks and you look at there's one exhibit 5, right? It tells you that Chad and Cameroon don't really seem to bear much of the downside risk, which means they're promised a certain amount of money, right? And that's the deal, right? ExxonMobil will come in, they'll extract the oil, they'll take it, they'll sell it, right? But what does the country get? The country gets some amount of money, right? And the amount of money that they get paid doesn't really, there's sort of a minimum that doesn't really get affected even if the oil reserves and the oil prices dip below certain levels, right? So they don't really bear the downside risks, right? The project sponsors bear some of the downside risks, but they also have a potentially large upside, right? If there's more oil than you expected and the price per barrel goes up, the upside that they have is quite large. So there's a risk and reward for them. Yes, there is a bit of a downside, but there is a bit of an upside. And the good thing is either way, Chad and Cameroon are likely to benefit, right? Which is what you want. The project is for development. You don't want a situation where you do all of this and finally Chad and Cameroon are stuck with nothing. Okay, so in that sense, it seems relatively fair. Chad and Cameroon invest virtually nothing. So if you look at the return on investment, it's infinity, right, or close to infinity, right? You're getting essentially free money. Somebody is saying, sit back, I'll develop the system for you and I'll give you money in your pocket, and even if there's not enough oil or the prices plummet, I'll still give you a reasonable amount of money, right? Good deal. Okay, so there's a net present value. So Chad tends to tends to get something of the order of 463 million if you do the discounted cash flow calculations. And again, you can argue that maybe more money should go to Chad and Cameroon, but they're not putting in any money, right? No investment. So the risk is being taken by Exxon, right? And therefore you can't expect a lot of reward to Chad. So from this perspective, do you think the project is fair? Yeah, it looks fair to me, right? It looks fair. There's nothing sort of unfair, nobody seems to be gaining unfairly. Yes, Exxon could make a killing, but they're also bearing the downside risks, right? So all of that seems fine. Project's fair. Okay, let's look at the project risks. Does the project have high construction risks? Yeah, think they have high construction risks? Why do you think they have high construction risks? Varun, what's your logic? So correct, yeah, but from a let's just look at it from a technology perspective. Are there technological risks? Okay, maybe that's a better way of putting this. Technological risks are relatively low because these are projects that people have done time and time again, and you've got one of the best in the business, right? ExxonMobil knows what they're doing, right? So this is probably a relatively low. There's always a risk, right? But it's a relatively low risk. Operating the pipeline, okay, in what way do you think that risk is high? So those are, yes, you always have a risk of leakage, etc. But how high is that risk in this case? So there is a risk, right? How high is the risk in this case, right? Again, you might think, I mean, I would say low. You guys can sort of say moderate, whatever. But again, I feel ExxonMobil is the expert here, right? They probably know exactly how to build it to prevent as many leaks as possible. They probably know how to fix these leaks better than anyone else. In other words, there are always risks, right? I mean, there will always be a risk of an earthquake coming in and damaging the pipeline. You can do nothing about that. Okay, but when you look at manageable risks in terms of constructions and operations, because they've got a really good player on board, right, you would expect that this is going to be constructed and operated to good quality. Okay, maintenance is always a problem, right? So see, there's always a challenge to any of these activities, right? Even drilling underground is not necessarily the safest whatever activity. The question is, what is the risk of deviate? So, and you already obviously have made some assumptions and provisions. Because of maintenance, you've already put in a maintenance budget, right? All of that. The risk refers to what is the likelihood that you could end up with a scenario that is way outside what you have already predicted. So obviously construction, I've also put in some costs, right? And some safety costs and all of that. So this is over and beyond all of this, right? Is how we look at the risk. So one would expect that yes, there are costs, but the risks are probably going to be well managed. I don't expect the pipeline to fail technically, because I've got a really good operator. That's not the risk I'm worried about. What about economic risks? Economic risks in this case relate to what? Relate to people buying the oil. Okay, again you would think that it's low or low to medium. I mean, there's always price fluctuations in the market, but we are still an oil guzzling international economy, right? So there's no question of, oh, I've produced oil and I don't know where to sell it, right? So economically this is, again, so it's unlikely that your finances won't really work out. Socially, environmentally, what would you say the risks are, right? So here is where there are lots of environmental groups, social groups, etc. that could create quite a bit of problem. It could be medium, it could be high, but it's certainly that end of the spectrum. Sovereign or political risks, right, could be very high here, right? So these are the key risks that we really want to mitigate, right? So what are they doing to mitigate these risks? Why should the World Bank endorse and fund this project? We've talked about this, so I'll just go through this. Chad is desperately poor. Most of the population living on less than $1, resource-starved government, high infant mortality, they need the money, there's no other development alternative, and the project is fair and viable, right? So that's another kicker. We're not developing it because, despite knowing that it's a bad project, we think that this is a good project, right? And the project structure is reasonably fair, right? And when we looked at those two risks, the social risks, right, how have they addressed the social environmental risks, right? What did they do? Right, so they did extensive stakeholder engagement, right? How much did they do? There's some sort of data given in the case, right? How much? So they 195 NGOs, n number of consultations, then they brought out a 19-volume document, which almost guarantees that it will not be read, right? So, and several consultative meetings, etc. So yes, and they did take some action, right? Like you pointed out, Shravya, on your presentation. As a result of this, they said initially the pipeline is going through some ecologically sensitive areas, and they diverted the pipeline, right? Maybe it added a little bit of cost onto the project, right? Because maybe it became a little bit longer, but they did that. Okay, so they really took some pains to minimize these ecological risks, these social risks, etc. Right? And then for and they had this capacity building plan that the World Bank put together. They had the revenue management plan, which was again looking at mitigating some of the political risks. Say you can't use the revenue for guns, you have to use it for development. And Idris Deby, the dictator, seemed to be showing signs of reform. Right? Seemed to be sort of saying, look, I mean, I'm initially a dictator just because I've got to bring some order to the country, but once that happens, maybe democracy is the way to go. Every dictator says that, by the way. Okay. So it seems like there is a reason to invest for all of these reasons. But when you look at it from the other side of the coin, as some of you talked about, again Shravya rightly pointed out, yes, we keep saying Exxon, what is their track record really? Right, we are all familiar with the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and these images today of all kinds of aquatic and bird life that people dragged out from the water, just completely swamped in oil and all of that. So how environmentally committed are they? Right? Yeah, they say all of these things, but will they really take the interests of Chad and Cameroon at heart? Right? What kind of track record does the World Bank have? And this has been questioned. Right? There's a part of the case which says, look, have you always funded the most responsible projects? Haven't you funded a number of other pipelines that have not led to any real economic development in those countries? Right? Somebody even says, show me one project in Africa where this has worked. Right? So there's that sort of concern. It's not as if the World Bank is a saint, and as soon as your World Bank touches your project, you are absorbed. Okay? We know all about Chad, despotic ruler, misuse of funds, expropriation, very risky investment destination. Right? Definitely don't take your next vacation in Chad. Okay, and Cameroon, same thing, right, to a slightly lesser order. Okay, so right, and we've talked about the problems with the RMP, lack specificity on how the money will be sent, how much restructure, etc. Oversight committee, we know 7 of them are government, is that biased? The enforcement mechanisms are purely defined, right? So what happens if I don't implement the revenue management plan? What happens, right? What's the enforcement mechanism? Okay, it's very unclear, right, what the enforcement mechanism. So I can always agree, right, to anything that you're saying, right? Like you guys always agree that you'll do the readings in ahead of the class, right? But what's the guarantee, right, that you can do it? Okay, and will people, if I start enforcing, will people actually say that's an invasion of sovereign rights, right? Will they say, look, I am Chad, this is my money, right? I have a government elected in whatsoever manner. Shouldn't I be concerned with my business, right? Who do you who's living in India or China or the US or whatever, what right do you have to tell me how to live my life, right? How different is this from, bombing Afghanistan for or Iraq or whatever it is, right? From for feeling that, they don't align with your principles. So that's another sort of argument. Is it an invasion of sovereign rights? Okay. You look at this graph, it's a little bit interesting. It tells you that Chad's, this is actually quite interesting because it says the cash flows, right? This is a percentage of cash flows from 0 to 100 and who gets what, okay? Chad, as you can see, has the least steep of all the curves. What does that mean? That means of all the money that's going to people, right, Chad gets its money the latest or the slowest, whichever way you want to think about it, right? So these guys here, which is essentially Cameroon and the oil consortium, get their money fast. So by 2008, these guys are at 50% of whatever is promised to them is already there, right? Whereas for Chad to hit the 50%, you're really looking at 2012. Okay, so this is interesting because what does this tell you? So that's one thing, right? It gets its money slower, so it may not be able to kick Exxon Mobil out. It's also getting its money later, which means its incentive to use money to sort of buy arms reduces, because let's say I get my first tranche of money somewhere here and I start buying guns right away, the project might just stop, right? So you have more incentive to behave well because your returns are coming later on in the project. All right. If I had front loaded your returns, you might have had more incentive to say, I've got my money, now let me do whatever I want, right? So again, when you look at the finances, it seems quite well thought out, right? It seems people have said, okay, to keep Chad in check, let's sort of give them small amounts of money over a period of time, as opposed to give you a really good deal up front, right? So seems interesting, okay? So Chad's returns occur later in the project, right? There are some commercial risks. There is a potential for large economic and social risks to occur. But here's the thing. Why did, the case talks about Shell, which is another big oil company, and ELF, and they sort of analyze this project and they exit it, right? And that's always something to think about, right? Why did they do that, right? Do they know something that we don't know, right? Because they're just as good. I mean, what's the difference between Shell and Exxon, right? They're both equally popular, whatever, or unpopular, large, oil companies, okay? One exited, why not, okay? So to fund or not to fund, right? Therein lies the question. So you can see there's arguments on both sides, right, essentially politically. And in case, I know some of you might have Googled to see what happened, but essentially what happened is the World Bank said, you know what, we're going to go with the majority in this class, right? So you guys want us to fund the project, we'll fund the project, right? We think it's the right thing to do, right? We think the project is fair, it's structured well, it will benefit the people of Chad. We've got safeguards in place, and we will sort of strong arm the government, all of this, etc., right? So we'll go approve the project. So Chevron, so if you remember, there was sort of an initial $25 million payment that was supposed to go to Chad upfront. This was actually paid to Chad, and immediately 4.5 million was spent on military expenditures, right? So everyone said, what, right? And Debbie pointed out that, hang on, these are not project revenues. The revenue management plan only talks about project revenues, right? This 25 million is out of that, okay? So I'm not doing anything wrong, right? So people looked at it and said, okay, maybe he's got a point, and anyway it's only 4.5 million out of 25 million, right? So fine, let's go ahead, right? So, but what would you do? Go ahead as planned, okay? All right, anyways, but the World Bank essentially said, that's an anomaly, okay? Let's go ahead with the project, okay? So they had an institutional advisory group. So this was their response to that whole revenue management plan monitoring committee has 7 people from the government, etc. They said, let's change that. Okay, let's have an international advisory group headed by the Prime Minister of Senegal. So let's get out this government bias. Let's get a better revenue management plan monitoring group, and things will be better, right? Debbie gets re-elected. So the project goes ahead. Debbie gets re-elected late 2005. Chad modified its petroleum revenue management law. And the revenue management law now said funds that come through these projects can be directed through security, right? In brackets, that means towards war and away from poverty alleviation, right? So the World Bank said, look, this is ridiculous, right? This goes against the grain, and this is where the sovereign function sort of came in, where Chad said, look, it's my constitution, right? I feel this is in the best interest of the constitution, therefore I'm changing the constitution, right? So 26th, Chad and World Bank signed an agreement, etc., pledging 70% of revenues for poverty alleviation after that. But in January 2006, the World Bank did have to stop assistance. So you can see sort of a stop-start curve, and then people wrote articles like this. Here's your chance to invest in corrupt governments and get high-yield rainforest destruction at no extra cost. Essentially saying, look, these are the kinds of projects you should not invest in. Okay. But anyway, so essentially there is a political risk here, right? And the whole case hinges around how am I managing that political risk, right? One, I bring the World Bank in. That's sort of one lever, right? Another lever is I put in a revenue management plan, and I actually have some governance mechanism surrounding it. But nothing in this world is so easy or so perfect, right? So just because the World Bank comes in, your problems are not solved. Just because you have a revenue management plan, your problems are not solved. You can never really walk away from the fact that there will be that temptation of using money to for further military needs and taking it away from social infrastructure needs. And therefore the question is, what can you do about it, right? So we'll talk a little bit towards the end of the class about how we manage some of these political risks, right? But this is a case of political risk. World Bank went ahead and funded it. Some of those risks came back to bite them. There's a little bit of a dance going on, okay? So now let's have group 11 talk about the second project, which is the Dabol project, which has political risks of a slightly different kind.